Hi, let's talk about music. One of everyone's favorite topics. I think music is one of those things that's touched so many of us in some way or another, and I'm pretty sure all of you at least have a favorite band or a favorite artist. Many of you out there probably are musicians or artists yourself, so this is a highly relevant unit for a lot of reasons. One of the things that's most important to know about music and sound recordings is that they're really, almost more than any other media, a transmitter of cultural values. And if you think for a second, you can probably think about some songs that are currently reflecting our culture today or that historically have reflected culture. You might look at protest songs from the 60s, for example, music of today that is very much like protest music from generations past. One example I always like to give is with the song Louie Louie, which is from back a long time ago. It's an oldie but goodie. And the FBI got really concerned about this song because if you listen to the song, and I'll make sure there's a link included in the course so you can check it out yourself, the words don't really make any sense and it's very hard to hear what they're saying. The FBI thought there were subliminal messages embedded in this song, and they fully investigated the song, and they also couldn't figure out what it meant. So the fact that the FBI often takes notice of what's in music tells us a lot about the importance of music in our culture. Now, when we talk about music, there are really three aspects to the music industry, and essentially three aspects to any production or media industry that produces something for public consumption, like music or television or even film. There's production, consumption, and distribution. We're going to talk through each of these. The production aspect refers to how music gets made. Now, historically, Edison invented the phonograph. We had early Nickelodeon machines that helped us view images, moving images, and listen to music at the same time. But the production aspect today is going into the studio and making music. Now, today we have such advanced technology that a lot of you have the power to produce music on your laptops, and I know a lot of you do that. I've had actually previous students send me samples of their own work, and it's really well done, really beautifully produced. But previously, in order to produce music for public consumption, you had to go through a traditional recording studio, not the way it is today. We also have to deal with, in the production aspect, what format is your music going to go? Is it going to be on vinyl? Are you going to have it available on CDs? Is it for digital download only? Are you going to do an 8-track? Are you going to put it on cassette? And it is important to consider the format because it does matter to an extent. We know that sound quality varies from one format to another. Accessibility varies. Not everyone has the ability to play vinyl records, unfortunately. Most people today do have the ability to access digital music, but not everyone has the ability to access digital music. 8-track takes, if your music is only on 8-track, I don't know who's going to listen to it. I personally don't know anyone who still has an 8-track player. Maybe you do, or even a cassette player. I got rid of my last cassette player a long time ago, but when I was growing up, that was the way we listened to music, and mixtapes are great. So it's even for CDs today, most music is published on a CD or available on CD format, but a lot of audience members aren't listening on a CD. You might get the CD to have as an archive, but you'll upload it onto your digital device in some way. And it's important to consider format when you consider production. How is that music that you're producing going to get distributed? Now, with traditional studio music, this is a great place to talk to within production about the many different areas in music in which you could find jobs. It's not just about talent. We need people in the music industry who work for what's known as A&R. This stands for Artist and Repertoire. These are basically your talent scouts who go out and seek out new artists to sign to record labels. What an awesome job, right? If you love live music, you like being up on what's going on in the music scene, and you stay pretty current that way, you might be a good candidate for an A&R rep. Traditional studio music also, we have to look at sales and distribution and the business side of it. Music industry, just like any other industry, relies heavily on accountants and financial analysts and market analysts to determine what people are listening to, why they like the music they're listening to, and what trends are happening in the market to keep artists competitive. So that's also an aspect that you might want to consider for a future career in the music industry. And of course, if you're more interested in the advertising, public relations side of it, there might be a place for you in studio music as well. Ads and merchandising, publicity, promotion, these are all people who work to get artists noticed and to sell items that are related to individual artists. So you might be a good candidate for working in traditional studio music, even as a public relations professional, doing whatever you can to get an artist noticed in some way. Now, there are many career paths within studio music and within the studio industry that you might want to consider if you are not a musician yourself, or if you just don't really are interested in that route, but you might want to work on the business side of it. Now, here's also a very important point for me to make. This is all still within the production aspect. With consolidation and ownership, there are three major labels that are controlling 70% of the music in the world and 80% of the United States market. That is Universal Music, Sony Music, and the Warner Music Group. Wow, pretty staggering. And these are three huge behemoth labels. These are major media conglomerates. And what we see is that you won't necessarily see musicians signed directly to Universal. You'll see them signed to a smaller label that is a subsidiary of Universal or Sony Music or Warner. And if you trace back your favorite musicians, you'll probably find that most of them are connected to these big three in some way. Pretty powerful media conglomerates in order to control 80% of the music we're hearing in the United States. 70% of the music in the entire world. This has some pretty serious implications for what music we listen to. We know now that you don't need a major label to get noticed. Case in point, Justin Bieber. Unfortunately, Taylor Swift got her start on MySpace. You can probably think of your own favorite YouTube celebrities who got noticed virally or by crowdsourcing. But we do know that major labels make individual musicians way more accessible, and they also have the power and authority to market musicians, unlike any other smaller label who might be in the industry but might not have the money and the financial backing. So it definitely has an impact on the type of music that we're able to access. So that's all production. Now, second phase is your distribution phase. This is how music gets to your audiences. Artists do have options today about how to distribute their content. If you think about it, there's really one of two big camps. If you go the traditional studio route and you want to go through the big channels and have a professional studio producing music and have the backing of a major record label, you've got that option. Let's say it's just you and a MacBook Pro and your buddies who can upload some songs to iTunes. Well, then your distribution systems are totally different, and the extent of the audiences that you're going to reach is totally different too. So artists do have options, but there are implications to each of those options. One example I like to give is with the artist known as Weird Al. Hopefully some of you are familiar with him. A couple years ago, he released an album, and he's been around for a very long time. This is, I want to say, one of his maybe 10th or 12th albums. And he decided, even though he is hugely popular and he has the backing of a major record label, he distributed his album on a variety of internet platforms only first, and then you were able to purchase the music elsewhere. But he released one song on YouTube, and then he would release one on Hulu, and then he'd release one on another platform, and that's really the way he wanted to do it this time around. So you do have options as an artist, but there are implications, and depending on your financial backing, some ways are a little bit easier than others. Now, the last aspect we have to consider is consumption. This is how we listen. And this really does have an impact on artist royalties. You know, we talk a lot today about music stealing and pirating of music, and I know it's so tempting to download music for free. A lot of people don't want to pay for music if they know they can download it for free, but really this does impact the artist and has a negative impact on the industry in a lot of ways. It can also impact popularity, too. I'll give you one example. One artist who is widely popular on Pandora. Her name is Zoe Keating. She's a cellist. She's really good. She had, in a 6-month period, 1.5 million Pandora plays, and she got paid for that 1.5 million plays about $1,600. Spotify wasn't much better. She had 131,000 plays on Spotify for $547. That's roughly 42 cents a play. It's very, very difficult to maintain a living as a musician if your only source of income is to distribute your recorded music. Right now, you can make it as a musician where musicians are making it as in live performances. People are still going to concerts. People are still interested in attending live shows. Live shows are great, and that's where artists are able to keep themselves in business and able to feed themselves and their families, is by traveling and touring and doing all these live shows. So we have so many different ways to consume music today. It's important to consider the implications of our consumption on the artists themselves. All right, that's a short overview of the music industry. Looking forward to talking with you about it soon.